It's hard to believe that we are already a week into 2026, and you know what that means. It's time for our first tier list video of 2026. So we're going to jump into the tier list graphic in just a moment. There are a few changes that we've made, a few champions that have moved up and down in the ranks, a couple of new designations that we added in, brought back a couple of legendary champions that had been removed because they ascended to mythic. So a lot of different things to jump into here. We're not quite ready for a sort of reset video where we go through all the different champions and talk about them, but we'll be talking through a decent amount of the champions here in this video. So a couple of things that I want to draw your attention to, and if you'll take a look down in the bad and niche categories, you can see that I've added the combat cycle designation to a few champions that didn't previously have it. The reason why is recently in combat cycle, they've added these bonus champions that are going to give you a little extra, a few extra points if you use them in combat cycle. So these champions aren't necessarily ones that are now suddenly good in combat cycle, but if you have a spot to use them in your roster, you're going to get some extra points for the champions who are actually doing well for you. So I did add those in. You can see a few of those in here. A few champions that aren't bonus champions like Stargirl and Cyborg and Captain Cold, but they still provide a lot of utility in combat cycle despite not getting a bonus there. So obviously we've kept that designation. A couple of champions that do have those bonuses that we didn't give the combat cycle designation to, and it's just because you know, they're worth using regardless. Like, you don't need a reminder that they're worth using. Champions like Nurse Harley, if you can afford her, or Death Metal Wonder Woman, for two good examples. Superman gives a bonus as well. Doesn't have the designation there, but still obviously worth using. And then the other thing that we've done is we went ahead and added back Wonder Woman legendary version and Red Hood's legendary version. We put this little arrow designation icon here for just to show you that this is a champion. These are champions that will ascend to mythic, and so you've got two different versions. We've got the mythic versions up here as well. And let's go ahead and talk about Red Hood first. We added Red Hood's legendary version in the niche tier. I think Red Hood is one of those champions that obviously provides a ton of damage, DPS support, a lot of AoE, really good in combat cycle and a couple of other modes because of that. But he just dies way too quickly, and you know, it's kind of difficult to get him healed back up. Whenever he does his ultimate, he usually dies soon thereafter. And because of that, it does limit his ability to do damage. If he's not on the battlefield, he's not really doing much for you. So we did start him off here in niche tier, and I really don't see him rising above that because of power creep and new champions being added in, but definitely worth noting that he is available there. And obviously we've got his mythic version one level above, which is roster dependent. Really just depends on whether you're building out a Bat Family lineup. I've seen some people use him with League of Assassins, but with Raish and Talia al Ghul not in the picture right now for most players outside of beta or the beta group, the soft launch group, really just can't recommend Red Hood as one of those champions to focus on. But if you do, he's definitely there for you. Next up is Hawk Girl, and Hawk Girl, we've actually moved down the tier list. The first limited mythic to make it all the way down to C tier, and I do think that she offers some niche viability for certain lineups, but Birds of Prey is not meta, has not been meta. We don't expect Birds of Prey to become meta anytime soon, and so she just really isn't worth utilizing. You know, she does have the Justice League tag, but there's way too many champions that have that Justice League tag that are easier to obtain, especially for non-spenders, light spenders, and you know, just anvils are such an important resource that you really shouldn't be wasting your time on a champion that is, you know, anything less than S or A plus tier realistically in the bleed. So that's that with Hawk Girl. We did have to move her down into niche tier. You're probably looking at a couple of other limited mythics that we might do the same thing to over time, but that's the only action we're going to take for now. And next we have the legendary version of Wonder Woman. And, you know, this is a champion that historically I've always been pretty high on in terms of her usability in pretty much any lineup. She is immediately worth building whenever you first start out playing in the game. Great for new players, great for mid-tier players, non-spenders, light spenders, whales, doesn't matter. She's going to provide a ton of utility for you, even as a legendary champion. The reason why she can't make it past that roster dependent level is, you know, she really is just suffering from not having enough stats at the legendary level. Now, when you are able to ascend her to Mythic, she actually becomes pretty meta relevant. She can hold her own in a Justice League Dark lineup. She works really well with Justice League, and you know, realistically, if you need a tank for you know, any sort of content that you're trying to do, she can definitely be there for you. She works in some of the ACN levels. She's going to do well in Realm of Fate and Training Simulator. So, you know, Legendary Wonder Woman is definitely worth building up, and you can even work on her force a decent amount early on and not feel, you know, hamstrung by that, because when you get her to the Mythic level, it's just going to make her that much stronger. She works really well early on with Justice League Dark, like I mentioned. She is going to get replaced whenever you're able to pull for Swamp Thing. But again, you know, just can't recommend that champion enough. We can skip over the meta-relevant level champions, those A-tier champions that are kind of, we're getting to the point where, you know, they're ones that you definitely want to be using in a lineup, maybe not the defining champion for a lineup, but ones that offer a decent amount of support. Nothing really changing there. Looking at a couple of these characters to maybe push further down, actually. You know, definitely a champion like Martian Manhunter, who has a couple of use cases, but isn't really meta anymore, especially with Swamp Thing and Queen Hippolyta showing up. It's really difficult to kill Constantine now just because you have Martian Manhunter in your lineup. And so he kind of gets to that point where, do you really want to be pulling for a champion that is just kind of a gimmick character, really? And I hate that because I really love Martian Manhunter. But, you know, I mean, look at this kid. It's really cool. If you get his unique legacy piece, the crew pendant, you know, nice to see that little animation there. You know, just a really awesome champion. I really hope that they get us some more outsiders so that I don't have to push him even further down the ranks. Still a good PvP character. Not moving him right now, but definitely one to look out for in terms of that. Another one that is kind of interesting is probably Raven. You know, as far as healers go, I do think she's a pretty solid healer if you invest heavily into her. But there are a lot of Justice League Dark lineups that are able to kind of just skip, like push her out and get away with either not having a healer or just going with, you know, some of these champions that provide a lot of shields. You already have Dr. Fate in the lineup who can provide a shield. So if you throw in Swamp Thing and maybe Queen Hippolyta, you might not even need a healer for the group, or at least not a dedicated healer. So something to think about. She's going to stay in the meta-relevant section for now, but probably in future tier lists we are going to be reevaluating. Moving up to A tier, we have Riddler. Really cool animation here for his landing screen, character landing screen. But really, I think one of the better developed kits that's come out over the last few months, and definitely makes both Arkham's Most Wanted more relevant as a tag synergy team, but also Riddler is incredibly plug and play friendly, and we've got him debuting on the tier list at A+ tier. He was unranked on the prior tier list. You know, we like to try to figure out the meta and at least try to understand these characters a little bit more before we're willing to, you know, put a ranking out here. And so I decided to go with A+ tier to start out with. Kind of remains to be seen whether we can call him an S tier champion, whether he can kind of stand up to some of the other S tier champs that we're going to be talking about in just a moment. But really like Riddler's kit design. You know, some pretty interesting things there. It kind of difficult. You want to make sure you have a lot of effect accuracy on Riddler, so that he can, get off this riddle me this, where he's going to be trying to inflict stacks of Enigma. Like I said, really important. Like Arkham's Most Wanted in general is known for needing effect accuracy, going to be putting a lot of debuffs out there. But if you can actually reduce the spiritual amplification of your enemies, reduce their attack, and reduce physical and spiritual defense, it kind of goes a long way. And you can actually get a pretty decent amount of physical and spiritual defense reduction on some champions if you're able to get this off enough times. So don't sleep on Riddler as a meta defining or must build champion for whatever team you're trying to go after out there. I use Riddler with my Death Metal Wonder Woman PvP team. You've probably seen that on a couple of videos at least. I think I just did a 3v3 strategic challenge video, and so you definitely saw Riddler being used there. And now we're in S tier, and a couple of just general notes here. One thing that I'm probably going to be doing on future tier lists, I really feel like Nightwing is kind of fallen off in terms of just, overall usability versus some of the other S tier champions. Still think he's S tier, or at least borderline A+. I don't really know that I want to move him down yet, but if we get another solid damage dealer champion, it might be difficult to maintain Nightwing up in the S tier category. So be on the lookout for that. Again, still think he's an amazing champion, but he kind of becomes a little bit more niche, the more I think about it. Moving over into the Warrior and Guardian section, we have a newcomer. I have moved Swamp Thing over up to S tier, and I really think he deserves it. I've had a decent amount of time to run Swamp Thing in a couple of different lineups. I do use him as far as my Gotham and Guardian Challenge, Great Krypton Rush, all those teams like the ship combat. I do use Swamp Thing with my Justice League Dark team, but I've started using Swamp Thing, and this was quite a while ago. Like as soon as I started pulling for him in the bleed, I threw him into my PvP, my Meta Brawl lineup, and I noticed that he actually does really, really well with Death Metal Wonder Woman and Queen Hippolyta. So that's actually a discovery that has been pretty pervasive out in the global launch servers who started pulling for Swamp Thing too. So I'm glad that I was on the very early side of that trend. And Swamp Thing's amazing. His kit probably, I don't want to say he does too much because I don't want to see him nerfed. I think it's one of those things where it's like if you can't beat him, join him. Mainly because I've already been using Swamp Thing, but he's incredibly powerful for Meta Brawl, and I think a lot of people are maybe getting frustrated with that because he kind of is an auto include. You kind of have to have Swamp Thing built if you want to be able to compete in the meta for any server where Swamp Thing exists. Definitely a whale on the whale or skip spectrum. I just can't ignore the fact that he pretty much needs to be in S tier. Toyed with the idea of moving Scarecrow up into S tier, but then I realized, a champion like Swamp Thing, it's very similar to Queen Hippolyta, where you pretty much have to have them in your lineup if you want to compete at the highest level. We talked about him a decent amount on a Will or Skip video that I did in the last couple of months, so I don't want to spend too much time here, but definitely go over to that video and take a look if you're interested in building Swamp Thing out over the coming months. And finally, we have Zatanna moving up to S tier. Probably a little bit more questionable for some of you moving her up a tier into S tier. I wasn't sure if I was going to do this, and she's definitely rose in the rankings over the last couple of tier lists, but I really think it's warranted. Her and Superboy are both just incredible at providing additional damage and allowing you to ramp up some of these win condition champions. And Zatanna can do a decent amount of damage herself. She's able to create that spectral image of herself that has a pretty decent amount of damage on its own. But also, one of the things that I guess makes her kit such a great utility is that spectral image is a way to shut down Legion of Doom teams. It's really weird, the interplay with Legion of Doom and Justice League Dark, because, you know, with the changes to Zatanna's kit and also Swamp Thing's introduction, you actually have a pretty decent chance of defeating Legion of Doom with your Justice League Dark lineup. So kind of interesting development there. I'm a fan of having kind of a rock, paper, scissors meta where you got a team, have Team A that can beat Team B can beat Team C, and Team C can beat Team A. So you kind of have like a few different teams that are worth building up and being able to fight with others. I think that works out fairly well in Meta Brawl. Now, I think there are probably some issues with the meta on some servers where that's just not the case. You just have one team that beats everything, and that's probably bad. Like, they definitely need to try to figure out a way to combat that. But, you know, typically that happens through just adding new champions rather than nerfing the ones that are out there. We'll see whether the developers think that there's a need for making any adjustments to these champions. They're definitely not scared of doing that. But as of right now, I think Zatanna 100% S tier champion for some of those reasons I mentioned. I think I know there are at least a few people out there who are going to be happy that I made this change, because you've been, Zatanna lifers. You've liked her, even since before the kit change. But that is going to wrap up the video, actually. Like I said, a pretty decent amount of movement here. I really struggled with some of these choices, but trying to gear up for some of the hopefully some of the awesome new champions that are going to be coming in early 2026. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this tier list, whether you have any disagreements, if there's anything that I just sorely missed. Always like to hear that feedback from you guys. I think it is incredibly helpful in, helping me change my views on some of these champions and learn. Definitely a lot of you out there who are much better at me at using some of the teams out there. I only have so many resources to build teams up with. So, appreciate all of that feedback. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Subscribing is completely free. We do have a membership tier. I think there's a couple of different ones that I put out there for you. A pretty cheap one, and then one where you can show a little bit more support if you'd like to. No pressure on that, but it is available if you'd like it. We've got a secret members only chat over in the Discord for that. If you want to get involved there, definitely do so. But otherwise, I do hope to see you on the next video.